Captain Jake Harrison stood on the bridge of the exploration vessel Meridian, watching the strange readings dance across his screen. 3 weeks they had been following these energy patterns, and nothing in the database matched what they were. Seeing, the signals pulsed like a heartbeat, strong and steady, coming from somewhere beyond the edge of human space. "Captain, I'm getting something on long-range sensors," said Navigator Lisa Campbell, her fingers moving quickly over her controls. "It's big, sir, really big." Jake moved to her station and looked at the display. A massive shape was forming on the screen, easily 3 times the size of their own ship. It had sharp angles and dark metal that seemed to drink in the light from nearby stars. Strange symbols glowed along its hull in patterns that hurt to look at for too long. "Any response to our standard greeting signals?" Jake asked Communications. Officer Amy Watson shook her head. "Nothing, Captain. But they're definitely scanning us. I can feel their sensors running over our hull like fingers." Chief Engineer Tony Rodriguez looked up from his station. "Sir, whatever they're using for power, it's putting out more energy than our entire fleet back home. This isn't some lost cargo ship we're dealing with." Jake felt his heart beating faster. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they had their answer, and it was staring at them with sensors that could probably turn their ship into space. Dust without much effort. "Incoming transmission," Amy announced. It's not like anything in our protocols. The signal is using patterns that look almost like brain waves." "Put it through," Jake ordered. The main screen flickered and then showed something that made everyone on the bridge step backward. The creature filling the screen was easily 8 feet tall, covered in scales that shifted from dark green to black. Its eyes were yellow with vertical pupils, and when it spoke, rows of sharp teeth were visible. Scars covered its face and neck, each one looking like it came from a serious fight. "I am War Commander Zethkar of the Karvak Syndicate," the alien said in perfect English, though his voice sounded like gravel falling down a metal chute. "Your species is unknown to us. State your nature and purpose, or be destroyed." Jake stepped forward, fighting every instinct that told him to run. "I'm Captain Jake Harrison of the human vessel Meridian. We're explorers from the planet Earth. We come in peace." Zethkar's head tilted to one side, like a predator studying prey. Peace, an interesting concept from a species that builds weapons into their exploration vessels. "Your ship carries enough firepower to level a small city." "Those are defensive systems," Jake replied. "We've learned that space can be dangerous." "Dangerous," Zethkar repeated, and something that might have been amusement crossed his scarred features. "Yes, space is very dangerous, especially for weak species that wander into territories they do not understand." Behind Jake, he could hear Tony's quiet breathing and Lisa's fingers tapping nervously on her console. Amy was recording everything, her training taking over even though her hands were shaking. "We're not looking for trouble," Jake said, "but we're not helpless either." Zethkar leaned forward, his yellow eyes focusing on Jake with laser intensity. "Not helpless? Prove this claim, human. Tell me of your species' strength. What makes you worthy of my attention instead of my weapons?" Jake thought quickly. He could talk about human technology or their military, but something told him this alien wouldn't be impressed by numbers or equipment specs. There was something in Zethkar's manner, the way he held himself, that reminded Jake of the big cats he'd seen in documentaries. This was a predator, and predators respected certain things. "My people are persistence hunters," Jake said. "Long ago, before we had advanced weapons, we would chase our prey across vast distances. Not fast like a cheetah, but steady like time itself. We would follow an animal for days, never stopping, never giving up. The prey would run until its heart burst from exhaustion, and then we would take it." For the first time, Zethkar's expression changed. His eyes narrowed with what looked like interest rather than contempt. "Continue," the alien commander said. We don't give up, Jake continued, gaining confidence. When something threatens us, we adapt, we learn, we survive. On our homeworld, we've outlasted creatures bigger than us, stronger than us, faster than us. We're still here because we never stopped trying. Zethkar was quiet for a long moment, studying Jake's face. Finally he spoke. Your species has interesting scars? Scars? Jake asked, confused. Not physical ones, mental ones. I can see them in how you stand, how you watch me. You have the awareness of something that has been hunted, but also the confidence of something that has done the hunting. Zethkar's clawed hand gestured toward the screen. Most species we encounter show fear or aggression when they meet us. You show calculation. You are measuring me as a threat while also measuring me as potential prey. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. The alien was right. Part of his mind was indeed analyzing Zethkar, looking for weaknesses, thinking about tactics. It was something he'd learned in military training, but it went deeper than that. It was something human. The Karvak Syndicate is composed of the galaxy's apex predator species, Zethkar continued. We are the hunters that other species fear. We have dominated this region of space for over 1,000 of your years. Do you know why? Because you're strong, Jake guessed. Because we recognize our own kind, Zethkar replied. A true predator can sense another predator, even across the vast differences between species. You interest me, human Captain Jake Harrison. Your people interest me. Amy whispered urgently behind him. Captain, I'm detecting more ships. At least 6 of them, moving into position around us. Jake didn't take his eyes off Zethkar. Are we prisoners? You are being evaluated, the alien replied. The Syndicate Council will want to hear about your species. It has been many cycles since we encountered a potential apex predator species in the early stages of galactic expansion. Potential apex predator? Tony muttered. Did he just call us dangerous? Zethkar's hearing was apparently very good. Your engineer questions this assessment. Perhaps he should examine his own species' history. How many other intelligent species shared your home world when you achieved spaceflight? The bridge fell. Silent. Jake knew the answer, and so did his crew. Humans had either outlived, outcompeted, or absorbed every other intelligent species on Earth. Neanderthals, Denisovans, and others had either died out or been integrated into the human gene pool. I see understanding in your faces, Zethkar observed. This is why you interest us. Most species develop intelligence as a defense against predators. You developed intelligence as a tool for better hunting. Your entire civilization is built on the foundation of successful predation. Jake felt something cold settling in his stomach. What happens now? Now you return to your people and tell them they have been noticed by the Syndicate. We will be watching your species' development with great interest. If you prove worthy, you may be invited to join us. If you prove to be a threat. Zethkar's teeth were very visible when he smiled. Well, even apex predators sometimes become prey to bigger hunters. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Around them, the alien ships began to move away, their dark hulls disappearing into the starfield like shadows melting into night. Captain, Lisa said quietly, what did we just get ourselves into? Jake stared at the empty space where the alien fleet had been. I think we just found out we're not alone in the universe. And I think we might not be as civilized as we thought we were. As the Meridian turned toward home, carrying news that would change humanity forever, none of them noticed the small probe that detached from Zethkar's ship and began following them at a discreet distance. The Syndicate wanted to learn more about these humans, and they were very good at watching their prey. 3 months had passed since Captain Jake Harrison's first contact with the Karvak Syndicate. The news had spread through human space like wildfire, causing panic in some colonies and excitement in others. Now the colony ship New Virginia, carrying 50,000 settlers to establish a new world, found itself face to face with the reality of their new galactic neighbors. Colony Administrator Ben Foster stood in the command center of the massive ship, watching the alien vessels that had appeared around them like sharks circling wounded prey. The Syndicate fleet was even larger than the one that had met Captain Harrison, with ships of different designs that suggested multiple alien species working together. "They're not responding to any of our communications," reported Security Chief Kate Sullivan, her hand resting on her sidearm out of habit. "But they're definitely scanning us. Every few minutes, I can feel their sensors sweep over the ship." Dr. Ryan Cross, the ship's xenobiologist, looked up from his computer where he'd been studying every piece of data from the first contact. "Based on what we learned from the Meridian encounter, they're probably evaluating us. The question is, what kind of evaluation?" The answer came when the main screen flickered to life, showing not one alien but 3 different species. Zethkar was there, his scarred reptilian features now familiar to the human crew. Beside him stood a creature that looked like it was made of living stone, with glowing cracks running through its body like lava veins. The third being was insectoid, with multiple arms and compound eyes that reflected the light in disturbing ways. "Humans of the vessel New Virginia," Zethkar spoke, his gravelly voice carrying across the bridge. "I am War Commander Zethkar. These are my colleagues, Stonerender Krixval of the Thurok and High Voice Ishithek of the Zinthari. We represent the apex species of this galactic region." Ben stepped forward, trying to project calm authority despite the fear gnawing at his stomach. "I'm Administrator Ben Foster. These are civilian colonists, families looking for a new home. We're not military." The stone creature's laugh sounded like boulders grinding together. "All life is military, soft flesh. Every day is a battle for survival. Your species pretends otherwise, but we know better. You have been chosen for the trial of apex predators," the insect being said, its voice coming from multiple throat chambers. "At once, if you pass, you prove your species belongs among the hunters. If you fail, you prove you are merely clever prey." Kate moved closer to Ben. "What kind of trial?" Zethkar's yellow eyes focused on her. 3 challenges that test the core nature of any apex predator species: tracking and persistence, pack coordination and strategy, and the willingness to make necessary sacrifices for survival. "And if we refuse?" Ben asked. "Then you turn around and never enter this region of space again," Zethkar replied. "Your species remains in the small corner of the galaxy you currently occupy, and you accept that you are not ready for the larger universe." Dr. Cross spoke up. "What happens to the colonists if we accept?" "They will be observers," Ishithek clicked. "But representatives from your ship will participate. Choose wisely, humans. The trials will test not just physical ability, but the predator instincts that we believe your species possesses." Ben looked around the command center. 50,000 people were depending on his decision. Families, children, elderly colonists who just wanted a peaceful life on a new world. But he also knew that humanity couldn't hide forever. If they were going to expand into the galaxy, they would have to face tests like this. "We accept," he said. 2 hours later, Ben found himself aboard an alien station that had materialized out of what seemed like empty space. The technology was beyond human understanding, but the purpose was clear. This was an arena designed for testing predator species. Kate Sullivan stood beside him, along with a dozen volunteers from the colony ship. Among them was Steve Dalton, a former Marine who'd served in 3 different conflicts before deciding to try colonial life. Nancy Price had been a high school teacher on Earth, but something in her eyes suggested she was tougher than her profession implied. Paul Martin was a maintenance worker, quiet and steady, the kind of person others naturally followed in a crisis. "The first trial," Zethkar announced as they stood in what looked like the entrance to a vast maze, "tests your ability to track wounded prey through hostile territory. Your quarry is already injured and desperate. Find it before it finds a way to escape or dies from its wounds." The maze stretched out before them, a complex structure of metal walls and artificial terrain that seemed to shift and change even as they watched. Somewhere inside, according to their alien hosts, was a creature that they needed to track and capture. Steve took point, his military training kicking in as he examined the ground for signs of passage. "Here," he said quietly, pointing to scratches in the metal flooring. "Something heavy dragged itself this way. Look at the pattern, it's favoring its left side." Nancy crouched beside him, studying the marks. "The spacing between the scratches is getting shorter, it's getting weaker." They moved through the maze like a pack, each person taking a role without needing to discuss it. Steve scouted ahead, Nancy analyzed the trail, Paul watched their rear, and Kate coordinated their movement. Ben realized he was watching something remarkable, his people adapting to an alien hunting ground with natural skill. The creature they found was like nothing in Earth's biology, a writhing mass of tentacles and teeth that had torn itself trying to escape through a gap in the maze. Walls. But the humans approached it with the same careful coordination they might use on a wounded bear, surrounding it and working together to safely contain it without causing more injury. "Interesting," Crexville rumbled as they watched on screens. "From the observation deck, they show mercy to wounded prey. Most predator species would simply kill and consume. They're persistence hunters," Zethkar replied. "They value the prize more than the kill itself." The second trial was more complex. The humans found themselves in an arena facing multiple robotic opponents that moved with deadly coordination. The challenge was to hunt as a pack, using teamwork to bring down prey that was faster and stronger than any individual human. Nancy surprised everyone by taking charge of the tactical planning. Her experience managing classroom chaos translated perfectly to coordinating a hunting party. She positioned Steve and two other volunteers as flankers while Paul led a group to drive the robotic prey toward an ambush point. The strategy worked flawlessly. The humans moved like wolves, communicating through gestures and positioning rather than words. When one robot tried to break free, Kate was there to turn it back toward the trap. When another tried to fight, Steve was ready with a coordinated takedown that used the machine's momentum against it. "They adapt quickly," Ishithik observed. "Most species require multiple attempts to develop effective pack hunting strategies against unknown prey." But it was the third trial that truly shocked their alien observers. The humans were presented with a scenario where one member of their group would have to remain behind to ensure the others could escape from a collapsing structure. It was designed to test whether they would sacrifice a pack member for the greater good, a brutal calculation that apex predators sometimes had to make. Paul Martin stepped forward before anyone else could speak. "I'll stay," he said simply. "I'm the oldest. I don't have family waiting for me on the colony ship." "It makes sense." Ben started to protest, but Paul held up his hand. "This is what apex predators do, right? We make the hard choices. We calculate the value of lives and make decisions that hurt us, but help the group survive." The structure didn't actually collapse. It was a test of willingness, not a real sacrifice. But the aliens had seen what they needed to see. The humans would make the brutal calculations that true predators had to make. Later, back on the colony ship, Ben sat in his quarters trying to process what had happened. They had passed the trials, earning the right to continue into syndicate space. But the cost was learning something about humanity that he wasn't sure he wanted to know. Kate knocked on his door and entered without waiting for permission. "The crew is talking," she said. "Some are proud that we proved ourselves. Others are disturbed by how naturally we took to the hunting trials. What do you think? Ben asked. Kate was quiet for a moment. I think we've been lying to ourselves about what we are. We call ourselves civilized, but put us in a survival situation and we turn into something else. Something that those aliens recognize as their own kind. Through the viewport, Ben could see the syndicate ships moving away, their dark hulls disappearing into the starfield. Somewhere among those vessels, alien predators were discussing humanity's potential, debating whether humans were worthy allies or future threats. The scary part, Ben said quietly, is that we didn't just pass their tests, we excelled at them. What does that say about us? Kate didn't have an answer, but as the New Virginia resumed its journey toward their new home, both of them wondered what other tests awaited humanity among the stars. The galaxy's deadliest beings had recognized them as kindred spirits, and there was no going back from that knowledge. The report from War Commander Zethkar traveled through Syndicate space faster than any ship could fly. Within days, it reached the silicon-based homeworld of the Vorthek, where Prime Hunter Kesheth read the intelligence files with growing interest. The Vorthek had ruled their corner of the galaxy for 3,000 years, and they had never encountered a species that impressed Zethkar quite so much. Kesheth stood 12 feet tall, her crystalline body catching and reflecting light in patterns that could hypnotize prey species. Unlike the organic Karvik, the Vorthek were living silicon, evolved from the molten cores of dying planets. They thought in geological timescales and hunted with the patience of mountains. Field Commander Thexmore, she called to her subordinate, a warrior whose crystal formations had been shaped by countless battles. Prepare a research expedition. I want to observe these humans directly. On Earth, Dr. Helen Davis sat in her laboratory at the Marine Biology Research Center, staring at data that made her question everything she thought she knew about human nature. The reports from the colony ship New Virginia had been classified, but as one of the world's leading experts on predator behavior, she had been brought into the government's response team. The behavioral patterns are undeniable, she said to her colleague, Dr. Carl Johnson, an anthropologist who specialized in human evolutionary development. When placed in predatory scenarios, our people don't just adapt, they excel. They show instincts that we've spent centuries trying to civilize away. Carl nodded grimly from across the room where he was reviewing historical data. I've been going through archaeological records, looking at how early humans hunted. The persistence hunting, the pack coordination, the willingness to sacrifice individuals for group survival. It's all there in our evolutionary history. Mike Torres, a retired Army Ranger who now worked as a security consultant, looked up from his tactical analysis. What bothers me is how naturally it came back. Those colonists weren't trained soldiers, but they moved like a coordinated hunting pack within hours. That kind of instinct doesn't just disappear because we built cities and laws. The three researchers had been working together for weeks, trying to understand what humanity's recognition by the Syndicate meant. Their preliminary findings were disturbing enough that the government had classified their work at the highest levels. We need to consider the possibility, Helen said carefully, that human civilization isn't built on overcoming our predatory nature. It might be built on redirecting it. Meanwhile, in Earth's upper atmosphere, Field Commander Thexmore's stealth ship maintained a hidden orbit. The Vorthek technology was so advanced that human sensors couldn't detect their presence, allowing them to observe without interference. What they saw in the weeks that followed changed how the galaxy's apex predators viewed humanity forever. Thexmore watched human cities with fascination. The social structures looked chaotic compared to the rigid hierarchies of most predator species. But closer observation revealed something more complex. Humans organized themselves into competing groups, but these groups could rapidly reorganize when faced with external threats. It was pack behavior on a massive scale. The breakthrough came when Thexmore observed human response to a major earthquake in Southeast Asia. Within hours of the disaster, Humans from around the world began coordinating rescue efforts. But it wasn't just cooperation that impressed the Vorthek commander. It was the calculated risks they took, the way they prioritized resources, and how quickly they established command structures in chaotic situations. They hunt disasters, Lexmore reported back to Prime Hunter Keshuf. When crisis strikes, they don't flee or hide. They converge on the problem like predators sensing wounded prey. But instead of consuming, they rescue and rebuild. Keshuf processed this information with the slow thoroughness of her species. Explain this contradiction. They are persistence predators who have evolved beyond individual hunting, Lexmore replied. They now hunt problems, challenges, obstacles. To their species' survival. The same instincts that made them effective hunters now make them effective at conquering their environment. Back on Earth, Helen Davis was reaching similar conclusions through her research. She stood before a secure video conference with government officials, presenting findings that would reshape humanity's understanding of itself. "We've been asking the wrong question," she said to the assembled officials. "We've been wondering if humans are really predators. But the evidence suggests we're not just predators. We're persistence predators who developed civilization as a hunting strategy." General Patricia Walsh, head of Earth Defense Command, leaned forward. "Explain that." "Traditional predators hunt for food," Helen continued. "But human predatory behavior extends far beyond hunting animals. We persistently pursue knowledge, resources, territory, solutions to problems. Our entire civilization is based on never giving up, never accepting that something is impossible." Dr. Johnson added his perspective. "Look at how we explore space. We don't send out scouts and wait for them to return like most species would. We send waves of explorers, each building on the failures and successes of those who came before. It's persistence hunting applied to the unknown." Mike Torres brought up the tactical implications. "This explains why the Syndicate is so interested in us. Most species develop technology to avoid conflict. We develop technology to be better at conflict. Our most advanced systems are weapons, defenses, and tools for extending our reach." The meeting was interrupted by an urgent communication from the monitoring station that tracked Syndicate activity. The alien ships had moved closer to Earth, taking positions that suggested long-term observation rather than immediate threat. Above Earth, Lexmore was making discoveries that would change galactic politics forever. The Vorthek had developed techniques for analyzing the neural patterns of other species, and what they found in human brain activity was unprecedented. Humans showed constant low-level predatory alertness, even in peaceful situations. Their brains continuously scanned for threats, opportunities, and resources. But unlike other predator species, they also showed complex social bonding patterns that allowed them to form much larger, cooperative groups than should be possible for apex predators. "They have solved the apex predator paradox," Lexmore reported. To Keshuf, most apex species are limited in group size because dominant predators cannot cooperate without constant conflict. Humans have maintained their predatory instincts while developing social structures that allow thousands of them to work together toward common goals. The implications were staggering. The galaxy's most dangerous species had always been limited by their inability to form large, stable alliances. The Syndicate itself was constantly threatened by internal conflicts between different apex predator species. But humans seem to have evolved past this limitation. On Earth, the research team was reaching the same conclusion from a different direction. Helen stood at the window of her laboratory, watching the busy city below with new eyes. "Look at them," she said to Carl and Mike. "Millions of apex predators living in close proximity, mostly cooperating instead of fighting. No other species in the galaxy has managed this." Carl nodded. "And when they do fight, it's with a coordination and scale that probably terrifies the aliens. Human warfare isn't just individual combat. It's organized pack hunting involving millions of participants. Mike was studying satellite images of Earth's military installations. The Syndicate must be wondering what happens when a species of persistent predators develops nuclear weapons and space travel. We don't just hunt individuals or small groups. We hunt entire concepts, entire problems. The conversation was interrupted by alerts from the orbital monitoring systems. The hidden alien ship was moving, changing position to observe different parts of Earth. Whatever they were learning, they were being very thorough about it. In space, Vexmore was completing the most comprehensive study of a potential apex predator species ever conducted by the Vorthek. The data was clear and disturbing. Humans weren't just another predator species. They were predators who had evolved social cooperation, technological advancement, and strategic thinking to levels that surpassed even the ancient Vorthek. Prime Hunter, Vexmore transmitted. I recommend immediate consultation with the Syndicate Council. These humans represent either the greatest opportunity or the greatest threat the galaxy has seen in millennia. Kesheth considered this for several long moments, her crystalline thoughts processing possibilities at the speed of computer calculations. Return to base, Field Commander. It is time for the Syndicate to make a decision about humanity's future. As the Vorthek ship departed Earth's vicinity, heading back into deep space, the three human researchers continued their work, unaware that their species had just passed another test. They had been observed, analyzed, and judged by beings older and more dangerous than anything in human experience. The verdict was still pending, but one thing was certain. Humanity could no longer pretend to be just another intelligent species stumbling through the galaxy. They had been recognized as apex predators by the galaxy's most dangerous beings, and there would be consequences to that recognition that no one could yet imagine. The Syndicate Council chamber hadn't seen this much tension in over 2 centuries. Representatives from every major apex predator species in the galaxy sat around the massive circular table, their different biologies creating a scene that would have been impossible anywhere else in the universe. The chamber itself was built to accommodate beings ranging from the crystalline Vorthek to the gas-based Nethys, observers who floated in specialized containment fields. War Commander Zethkar stood at the center of the chamber, his scarred reptilian features calm despite the heated debate raging around him. Field Commander Vexmore of the Vorthek stood beside him, her crystal body reflecting the angry light emanating from other species present. The evidence is clear, Zethkar said, his gravelly voice carrying over the chaos. Humans are not just another intelligent species. They are apex predators who have evolved beyond our understanding. They represent either the greatest alliance opportunity or the greatest threat the Syndicate has ever faced. General Krexthen, a massive Karvak whose scars made even Zethkar look unmarked, slammed his clawed fist on the table. You speak of opportunity when you should speak of extinction. These humans will not be content to remain in their small corner of space. They will expand, and when they do, they will compete with us for resources and territory. Competition is not necessarily conflict, Vexmore replied, her voice ringing like wind chimes in a storm. The Vorthek have observed their behavior extensively. Humans show remarkable ability to form alliances even with former enemies when faced with common threats. Hive voice Ishithik of the Zinthari clicked disapproval from across the chamber. Pretty words from species who have never faced true expansion pressure. When resources become scarce, all predators revert to their base nature. These humans will be no different. The debate had been raging for hours, splitting the Syndicate into 2 clear factions. Zethkar's progressives believed humans could be valuable allies, while Krexthen's hardliners saw them as an existential threat that needed to be eliminated before they could spread further into the galaxy. Meanwhile, in Earth's solar system, Admiral Grace Mitchell stood on the bridge of the battleship Constitution, watching the deployment of humanity's first interstellar defense fleet. The reports from the Syndicate had prompted the largest military mobilization in human history, though most civilians still believed they were dealing with potential allies rather than possible extinction. "Admiral, we're receiving updates from the Diplomatic Corps," reported her communications officer, Lieutenant Commander Susan Blake. "Ambassador Alan Brooks is still pushing for peaceful negotiations, but Intelligence Director Frank Walsh is recommending we prepare for the worst." Grace nodded grimly. She'd read the classified reports about humanity's performance in the alien trials, and she understood why the Syndicate was split. Humans had proven themselves to be formidable predators, but that very capability now threatened to start the galaxy's first interspecies war between apex predator civilizations. "Any word from our deep space monitoring stations?" she asked. "Nothing concrete, but Commander Davis at Station 7 reports unusual energy readings consistent with large fleet movements. Something big is happening in Syndicate space." The something big was a civil war that had been brewing since Dexmore's report reached the Council. The philosophical differences between the factions had escalated into armed conflict when Crexton accused Zethkar of being compromised by excessive exposure to human thinking patterns. The first shots of the Syndicate Civil War were fired at the edge of contested space, where a patrol fleet loyal to Zethkar encountered a hardliner force commanded by General Crexton himself. The battle was brief but vicious, demonstrating why apex predator species rarely fought direct conflicts with each other. It was into this chaos that human freighter captain Sam Hughes found himself flying when his cargo ship Wanderer dropped out of hyperspace at what should have been a routine refueling station. Instead, he found himself in the middle of a space battle between alien vessels that made human warships look like toys. "Holy hell," muttered his engineer, Beth Chun, staring at the tactical display. "Sam, those ships are tearing each other apart with weapons that could probably crack a moon." Navigator Jack Miller was frantically trying to plot an escape course. "Captain, we need to get out of here now. These readings are off the charts." But Sam Hughes was studying the battle with the calculated eye of someone who'd spent 20 years hauling cargo through dangerous space. He'd served in the Merchant Marine during the Resource Wars, and he recognized tactical patterns when he saw them. "Beth, how good are our communications?" he asked. "Good enough to reach either side of this fight. But Sam, what are you thinking?" "I'm thinking those ships there are outnumbered 3-1. But they're holding their own because they've got better positioning. And I'm thinking that bigger group is about to make a tactical mistake that's going to get them all killed." Jack looked at him like he'd lost his mind. "Sam, these are alien warships fighting with weapons we don't understand. What could we possibly contribute?" Sam was already moving to the communications console. "We understand tactics. We understand how predators think. And sometimes an outside perspective is exactly what a hunter needs." Against the protests of his crew, Sam opened a channel to the outnumbered force, which his computer identified as belonging to Zethkar's faction. The response came immediately, and Sam found himself face to face with War Commander Zethkar himself. "Human vessel, remove yourself from this combat zone immediately," Zethkar growled, his attention clearly divided between the conversation and the battle around his ship. "Commander, with respect, you're about to lose this fight," Sam said bluntly. "Your enemy is setting up a pincer movement that will put you in a crossfire you can't escape." Zethkar's yellow eyes focused on Sam with laser intensity. "Explain." "Those 3 ships breaking off from the main group aren't retreating. They're moving to flank you. In about 4 minutes, they'll have you caught between 2 firing solutions with no way out." For a moment, Zethkar said nothing, processing this information while energy beams and projectiles filled the space around his ship. Then his scarred features twisted into what might have been a smile. "And what would you suggest, human?" Sam highlighted tactical positions on his display. "Feint toward their main group, draw them forward, then hit those flanking ships before they can complete their maneuver. Use their aggression against them. What happened next became legend in both human and syndicate military academies. Zethkar. Force executed Sam's tactical suggestion with precision, turning what should have been a devastating defeat into a complete victory. The hardliner fleet was destroyed or scattered within minutes, their superior numbers meaningless against superior. Tactics. Impossible, breathed Jack Miller as they watched alien warships the size of cities maneuvering according to a plan suggested by a human cargo hauler. Beth was staring at the sensor readings. In disbelief. Sam, do you realize what we just did? We outthought alien apex predators in their own kind of warfare. But Sam was listening to Zethkar's voice over the communications channel, and what the alien commander was saying chilled him to the bone. Human Captain Sam Hughes, you have demonstrated why my faction believes your species should be welcomed into the Syndicate. But you have also demonstrated why the hardliner faction believes you must be destroyed. Your tactical insight allowed 3 ships to defeat 9. What happens when your entire species applies this thinking to galactic warfare? The question hung in the space between them, highlighting the fundamental problem humanity now faced. Their very competence as predators made them threatening to other predator species. Success in one arena meant danger in another. What happens now? Sam asked. Now the hardliners will escalate, Zethkar replied grimly. They will claim that today's battle proves humans are too dangerous to be allowed to expand. General Crexton will demand immediate military action against Earth before your species can develop further. Beth leaned close to Sam's ear. Should we run? Get back to Earth and warn them? But Sam was still looking at Zethkar's scarred features on the screen. Commander, is there any way to prevent this war? Perhaps, Zethkar said slowly. But it would require your species to prove something that no apex predator species has ever proven before. You would need to demonstrate that you can be trusted with the power you possess. The communication ended, leaving the 3 humans alone in space, surrounded by the debris of an alien battle they had helped win. Around them, the wreckage of ships that could have conquered Earth drifted in the void, destroyed by tactics suggested by a cargo hauler who'd learned strategy from human military history. Jack, set course for Earth. Maximum speed, Sam ordered. What? Are we going to tell them? Beth asked. Sam stared out at the alien wreckage, thinking about Zethkar's words. We're going to tell them that being recognized as apex predators comes with a price. And we're about to find out if humanity's ready to pay it. As the Wanderer jumped to Hypus, ancient intelligences were taking note of humanity's tactical capabilities, NT. The neutral zone between human and syndicate space had never seen a fleet like the one General Krex then brought to end the human threat. 200 ships from 6 different apex predator species, armed with weapons that could sterilize planets, and commanded by beings who had never known defeat. The hardliner faction had convinced themselves that humanity's tactical abilities made them too dangerous to exist. Admiral Grace Mitchell watched the approaching alien fleet on her tactical display, knowing that humanity's entire space navy was outnumbered 50-1. The battleship Constitution led a defense force of Earth's most advanced warships, but even their nuclear arsenal seemed pathetic compared to the energy signatures coming from the alien vessels. Admiral, we're getting multiple hyperspace readings, reported her tactical officer, Commander Lisa Park. Something big is coming out of the Galactic Core region. What emerged from hyperspace made both human and syndicate forces pause their preparations for battle. The ships were unlike anything either side had seen before, massive constructs that seemed to bend space around them just by existing. They were ancient beyond measure, their dark hulls scarred by eons of travel through the hostile depths of space. This is Overlord Thainmer of the Nethys hegemony, came a voice that seemed to speak directly into the minds of every being in the system. We claim priority right of judgment in this matter. General Crexton's voice crackled over the Communication channels tinged with fear that few had ever heard from the veteran warrior. Overlord, the Nethys have not intervened in galactic affairs for 3,000 years. Why do you emerge now? Because a new apex predator species threatens to disrupt the balance we have maintained since before your species learned to hunt, Thanemer replied. These humans require evaluation by the eldest of the galaxy's apex predators. Grace felt a chill run down her spine. The Nethys were legends, stories told to frighten children about the monsters that lived in the dark between stars. They were supposedly the first apex predator species to achieve interstellar travel, and they had withdrawn to the galactic core when younger species began to spread across the galaxy. Admiral, whispered Commander Park, our sensors can barely register their ships. The technology readings are off any scale we understand. On the lead Nethys vessel, Overlord Thanemer studied the tactical displays with ancient eyes that had watched civilizations rise and fall. The Nethys had evolved in the crushing gravity wells near the galactic core, becoming apex predators in an environment that would kill most life forms instantly. They had been watching the galaxy's younger species for millennia, occasionally intervening when the balance of power threatened to collapse. Initiate deep scan of the human vessels, Thanemer commanded. I want to understand not just their technology, but their decision-making patterns. What the Nethys discovered in those scans changed everything. Human ships showed tactical formations that suggested not just military training, but evolutionary adaptation for group hunting. Their weapon systems were designed for persistence engagement rather than quick kills. Most intriguing of all, their command structure showed decision-making patterns that balanced individual initiative with group coordination in ways that most apex predator species couldn't achieve. Fascinating, Thanemer murmured. They have evolved beyond the apex predator limitation. Admiral Grace Mitchell found herself in the unprecedented position of commanding human forces in a three-way standoff between species that could each destroy Earth without significant effort. Her communications officer was frantically trying to establish diplomatic contact, while her weapons officers prepared for a battle they couldn't possibly win. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the Nethys flagship, reported the communications. Officer, they're requesting permission to board. Grace almost laughed at the absurdity of beings who could obliterate her fleet asking permission for anything. Grant permission, she said, and pray they're feeling diplomatic. The being that materialized on the Constitution's bridge was humanoid, in basic shape but clearly adapted for environments that would crush normal life forms. Overlord Thanemer stood nearly 9 feet tall, his dark skin seeming to absorb light, and when he moved, it was with the fluid grace of something that had evolved to hunt in three-dimensional space. Admiral Grace Mitchell, Thanemer said, his voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate in her bones. Your species has created an interesting problem for the galaxy's established order. We didn't ask to be evaluated as apex predators, Grace replied, forcing herself to meet the ancient being's gaze. We were just exploring space and trying to build new colonies. Indeed, and that is precisely what makes you so dangerous. Thanemer moved to the tactical display, studying the positions of the 3 fleets with professional interest. Most apex predator species expand through conquest. You expand through persistence and adaptation. You don't destroy other species. You outlast them or absorb them into your own civilization. Grace felt something cold settling in her stomach. Is that bad? It is unprecedented. The galaxy has maintained stability for millennia because apex predator species are limited by their inability to form large, stable alliances. We compete, we fight, but we also respect each other's territory because direct conflict between apex species is too costly for anyone to win. But humans are different, Grace said, beginning to understand. Humans are persistence predators who have learned to hunt problems instead of prey. You attack challenges the same way your ancestors attacked mammoths, with relentless pressure and coordinated effort until the problem is solved. This makes you potentially the most successful species the galaxy has ever seen. Before Grace could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. "Admiral, the Syndicate fleet is moving," reported Commander Park. "General Crexton is positioning for attack." Thanemer didn't seem surprised. The hardliners believe they can solve the human problem through traditional apex predator methods. They are about to learn why the Nethys have survived longer than any other species in the galaxy. What happened next demonstrated the difference between ancient apex predators and younger species. The Nethys didn't destroy General Crexton's fleet. Instead, they used technology beyond human or syndicate understanding to simply disable every weapon system on every ship simultaneously. 200 of the galaxy's most advanced warships became floating debris in the span of seconds. Impressive. Grace breathed, watching the tactical display. "Efficiency," Thanemer corrected. "We learned long ago that destruction is wasteful. Control is far more useful." With the hardliner fleet neutralized, Zethkar's progressive forces moved into the system, followed by ships representing multiple syndicate species. Grace found herself hosting the most important diplomatic meeting in human history, with representatives of every major apex predator species in the galaxy gathering aboard her ship. "The question before us," Thanemer announced to the assembled beings, "is whether humanity can be trusted with the responsibilities that come with apex predator status." General Crexton, his pride wounded but his survival instincts intact, spoke first. "They are too adaptable, too willing to change tactics. They will upset the balance that has kept the galaxy stable." War Commander Zethkar disagreed. "Their adaptability is precisely why they should be welcomed. The galaxy faces challenges that will require new thinking." It was Dr. Monica Bell, a human strategist who had been brought aboard specifically for this meeting, who provided the answer that changed galactic history. What if the balance you're trying to protect is actually holding everyone back? The chamber fell silent as every apex predator present focused on the small human woman who had dared to question. "Millennia of established order, explain," Thanemer commanded. Monica stepped forward, her voice steady despite being surrounded by beings who could end her life with a thought. "You've all been so focused on maintaining the balance between apex predator species that you've forgotten why apex predators exist in the first place. We're not supposed to fight each other. We're supposed to protect the ecosystem." She gestured to the tactical display showing the 3 fleets. "Look at what we accomplished today. The Nethys prevented a war without firing a shot. The syndicate factions worked together when faced with a common challenge. And humans provided tactical insight that helped everyone achieve their goals. That's not competition. That's cooperation." Prime Hunter Kesheth of the Vorthek spoke for the first time, her crystalline voice ringing through the chamber. "The human proposes that we transform competition into collaboration." "Not transform," Monica corrected. "Evolve. Just like humans evolved from individual hunters to pack hunters to civilization builders. Maybe it's time for apex predator species to evolve beyond territorial competition." Overlord Thanemer was quiet for a long moment, his ancient mind processing possibilities that hadn't existed for thousands of years. Finally, he spoke. "You propose the formation of an alliance based not on shared weakness, but on shared strength." "I propose," Monica said, "that the galaxy's deadliest beings accept the responsibility of being its protectors." The silence that followed was broken by an unexpected sound. War Commander Zethkar was laughing, a harsh sound that somehow conveyed genuine amusement rather than